Sup guys?
That's not how I sound.
Sup guys?
Is that how I sound?
No, I don't know. You don't even say sup guys.
I said, hey, what's up everyone, Danny
Hey,
here.
what's up everyone? It's Danny here.
Hey, what's up everyone, Danny here. In this video I'm going to show you an entry-level PC that I put together using an AMD Raven Ridge APU. The entire build was assembled using only brand new parts, which is something that doesn't happen too often here on the channel. The last time I did an all brand new parts build was about a year ago, so it's about time for another one, which is perfect considering that AMD recently released these only a couple of months ago. They're really ideal for getting an affordable system up and running without the need for a graphics card right away, and they have a really good upgrade path so that down the road when you do secure more funds, you can easily add on to your system. Now, this build is going to be in collaboration with Cooler Master, who helped with a lot of the components, as well as Team Group, who supplied the memory. So huge thanks to both of them, as I've never had this level of support before from companies on a build video, let alone any other type of video. But yeah, without further ado, let's check out the build. Okay, first let's go over the parts used in the build. I'll discuss prices after we go through all the components, and I'll also give you some ways to tweak it for your own budget and preferences. The start of this build is AMD's Ryzen 3 2200G with integrated Vega 8 graphics. Because we're not going with a dedicated GPU for this build, this is going to be where the biggest money saver is, especially since GPU prices are still pretty high as of making this video. The 2200G has 4 physical cores at 3.5 GHz each, all which are capable of boosting up to 3.7 GHz at stock. This is going to perform really similar to its Ryzen 3 1200 counterpart. It actually has a higher base and boost clock, so at stock it pulls slightly ahead, but where the killer value of this comes in is with the integrated Vega 8 graphics, which is going to give you the ability to easily play lighter esports titles at 1080p, and it's going to give you a playable experience with a handful of AAA titles at 720p. Now, I know that everyone has different expectations and definitions of what it means to be playable, but you'll see during the benchmarks how this performs and you can decide that for yourself. For cooling, I stuck with the Race Stealth that comes in the box. I've used this with other Ryzen chips in the past, and I personally think it's a good cooler that will always net you at least a light if not moderate overclock without having to pay anything extra. The motherboard I'm using is the MSI B350M Pro VDH. It's an entry-level motherboard, but being a B350 chipset is going to allow us to overclock the 2200G without breaking the bank. One thing to note is that not all 300 series boards are going to be compatible with 2nd gen Ryzen CPUs and APUs right out of the box, so a BIOS flash may be necessary. I was able to flash it myself with a different Ryzen chip that I had on hand, but most people likely won't have that, so you'll have to look into other options such as using one from someone else that you know, asking a local computer shop or retailers like Fry's or Micro Center if they can help, or you can contact AMD for a boot kit in which they will send you a chip to use to do the flash, and then you just have to send it back. Over time though, the 300 series boards will come pre-flash, so the more time that passes since the release of the 2nd gen Ryzen chips, the more likely you'll be okay. For memory, we're going with a 2x4GB kit of 3000MHz T-Force Vulcans from Team Group. I stuck with 8GB for this build because RAM prices are still pretty high, but I made sure to use a kit that was decently high speed and that there were 2 modules to take advantage of running them in dual channel. Both of these factors are going to have a noticeable impact because we're on the AM4 platform, as well as using an APU. I'm generally not too picky when it comes to RAM timings, as capacity and frequency usually outweigh it, but by all means, if you can, get lower latency RAM for the same capacity and speed if it's free on the table, but otherwise I wouldn't sweat too much about it, especially for a build of this caliber. One thing to keep in mind is that the integrated graphics is going to share some of this memory, up to 2GB actually, but I was completely fine with that and I didn't think that warranted jumping up to 16 gigs. For the power supply, Cooler Master sent over their MWE450, a 80 plus bronze rated unit from their relatively new line of entry-level power supplies. Johnny Guru hasn't taken a look at these yet, nor have many other sources that I usually turn to for power supply reviews, like Tom's Hardware, AnonTech, Hard OCP, and a few others. There just isn't that much information out there on the MWE series, but I was able to find a review from Kit Guru, who looked at the 650 watt model, which I'll leave in the comments below. Though keep in mind, not all units from the same line are always the same quality or have the same internal components, so I'm hoping we see a review pop up soon from a reputable source. For storage, I went with the SSD and a mechanical drive combo. I'm using a 120GB HP S700 solid-state drive as a primary boot drive and for all the commonly used programs. And for games, media, and all-around storage, I went with a 1TB Hitachi UltraStar 7200 RPM 3.5-inch drive. One thing that I always look out for in mechanical drives specifically is the speed, because there is a noticeable difference between 7200 and 5400 RPM, and since this will be used for more than just archiving files, you're going to want it to be as fast as possible, especially if you're going to be throwing large games with long load times at it. The operating system that I'll be installing on the SSD is Windows 10 unactivated. I tend to advise people to spend as little as possible for the operating system or to find a way to get it for free, legitimately of course. I don't promote pirating, but I'm also not your dad, so do whatever you want. But Windows 10 is completely usable without being activated. I've discussed this in a previous video on the channel before, because I don't know anyone who spends $100 on a Windows license in this day and age. Get creative and save yourself the money so that you can put that towards other hardware. And don't worry, you'll be paying Microsoft back when they data mine you anyways. The case housing all the components is the Cooler Master Masterbox Q300L. This is one of their newest cases in their Masterbox lineup, intended for those looking for a small form factor and unique aesthetics at an affordable price. I've always been a fan of smaller cases with aspect ratios closer to a cube, so I really like the size and shape of this. This case supports micro ATX and mini ITX motherboards, and is super open in its main chamber. There's no hard drive or optical cages there, and there's no power supply shroud, so it's just one large open volume of space. It's got super easy to remove magnetic dust filters which have geometric patterns on them, and a modular front I/O that can be moved around to your liking, and the side panel is made of acrylic. For cooling the case, the Q300L only comes with one exhaust fan in the back. To get some more airflow, Cooler Master sent over some of their Master Fan Pro RGB 120s. The fans can be bought individually or in a pack that comes with an RGB LED controller, but I decided that I didn't need the controller because I wasn't seeking any of the special rainbow effects. I just wanted one static color for this build, which can be controlled by the RGB header on the motherboard. That can be done easily with a cheap generic RGB splitter and a fan splitter. I'm also attaching handles to the case. The Q300L uses the same primary chassis as the Q300P, so I'm using a broad set of handles from the Q300P because I'm all about the handles. Now Cooler Master is planning on selling these as accessories, but unfortunately at the time of making this video, I don't have an estimate of when that will be or how much it'll cost. What I'd like to see though is if Cooler Master has an option to have it shipped with the handles, which should cut down costs compared to having to package and ship them separately after the fact. So let's take a look at the price breakdown and see what you should expect to spend on a system like this. For the configuration that I'm showing you, the build comes in at roughly $440, which is reflective of pricing that is either at MSRP or deals that are pretty common if you spend a little bit of time on sites like Build a PC sales or Slick Deals. Everything highlighted in yellow is the actual price that I bought the components for. Everything else is estimated based on prices that I consider are pretty fair. There's no super crazy once-in-a-lifetime deals reflected here. This is very accessible. If anything, if you are a crazy deal hunter, then you can even push the price down even lower. Now another take on the system would be to get the bare minimums if you're on a super tight budget, and you can do that by stripping off all the extras. Things like the SSD isn't completely required. You can go with some non-RGB fans or even no extra fans at all, and you don't need the handles even though they are super awesome. In a configuration like that, you'll come in a bit under $350, and remember, this is all with brand new parts. I really enjoyed building the system. I didn't have any hiccups along the way, and the Q300L was a breeze to work in, especially considering that it's a small case. The fact that it has a really large open chamber with no added drive cages gives it a lot of room. There's also over an inch of space behind the motherboard tray, so cable management was a breeze. If you haven't seen it yet, I uploaded a video of the entire build sequence. Definitely check that out if you want to see each and every step of the build and what it's like to work in this case. Now let's take a look at how the system performs. I only overclocked the Vega 8 graphics. I saw no point in overclocking the CPU because the integrated graphics is the clear bottleneck here, and even after overclocking, it's still the bottleneck. So I left the CPU at stock settings and overclocked the iGPU from the stock 1100 MHz to 1550 MHz at an SoC voltage of 1.2 volts, and the RAM was running at 3000 MHz. The titles were tested in 1080p when capable and dropped down to 720p when the performance was not enjoyable, which for me is basically anytime the average FPS was like less than 30 or if it had any really low 1% mins. The resolution and settings are noted with each of the tests, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the benchmarks. So those were the benchmarks, and I gotta say, I'm really impressed with what AMD has here. You know, RAM and graphics card prices aside, to be able to get that level of performance for an MSRP of only $100 brand new is pretty amazing. I've even seen it go on sale, the 2200G, down to like $80 at Micro Center, which you can price match at Staples Online if you don't have a Micro Center in your state, by the way. That's a tip for you. But yeah, I think it's just crazy that you can get such a capable product that is so readily available at such a low price. Like, these aren't sold out and stuff. You can easily get this, and I think it's going to be able to serve a lot of people. But yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for this video. So if you enjoyed, please be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe and hit that bell notification if you want to see more content from me. And let me know down in the comments below what your thoughts are on the build overall and what your opinions are on the Raven Ridge APUs. Like, do you think they're worth it, or do you think they're complete garbage? Because I know some of those people are probably out there. And would you have changed anything in this build? Like, maybe go for the 2400G? And then what do you guys think about those handles though? Is there any other handle fanatic in the audience or LAN party goers? Let me know. But other than that, I just want to thank you as always for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I want to give, again, a huge thanks to Cooler Master and Team Group for helping me make this build possible. And yeah, I will see you on the comments as well as in the next video. Bye.